Judges, you may begin.
Well, good afternoon, fellow cheeseheads. My name is Zach Eastburn, and I am a lawyer in Madison, Wisconsin. So nice to see you all.
Good morning. My name is Tom Tinder. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Tinder, and I'm an attorney from Charleston, West Virginia.
I'm Robert Diane. I teach American government at the University of Evansville in Indiana.
You guys can feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hello, judges. We are the Unifor representatives from Wauwatosa East High School, representing the Wisconsin Wildcard team. We are coached by Mr. Taylor McDaniel, and my name is Aiden Anich.
My name is Julia French.
I'm Micah Korb.
And I'm Maddie Bartz.
Excellent. Well, nice to meet you all. Today we will be doing question 2. I will read the question, and then you guys are free to start with your opening statement. Question 2 says, members of Congress are not only legislators, but they are also inquisitorial and should meet frequently to inspect the conduct of the public officers. How effectively do you believe Congress has used its investigatory power? And then explain the differences, if any, between Congress's power to investigate and the power of oversight. Which power, in your opinion, is more significant? And finally, how effectively do you believe Congress has used its oversight powers? You may begin.
Most Americans don't have a grasp on the extent of bureaucratic regulation. Daily tasks such as turning on a light switch, drinking a glass of water, eating breakfast, and driving to school are all directly influenced by the federal bureaucracy. Without Congress collaborating with the bureaucracy, there would be no guarantee that their legislation would be carried out in the way they intended. The process of congressional oversight is crucial to guaranteeing the effectiveness of bureaucracy.
According to the Congressional Research Service, congressional oversight is the, quote, review, monitoring, and supervision of the implementation of public policy, end quote. The core of congressional oversight is the constant collaboration between Congress and the bureaucracy, ensuring that legislation is working effectively and preventing bureaucratic drift. It is the responsibility of Congress to ensure that members of the bureaucracy do not follow their own personal agenda, but follow the requests of Congress along with the president in what is in the best interest of the country. It is also the duty of the bureaucracy to give Congress their knowledge and expertise on certain topics so they can make educated and well-rounded legislation. Interest groups also serve a large role in what is known as the Iron Triangle, as they influence congressional votes and provide their own agendas.
Oftentimes, when Congress utilizes congressional oversight, it can lead to a congressional investigation. Investigation powers, unlike oversight powers, involve private corporations outside of the government, holding hearings with the intention of furthering knowledge on a specific situation when drafting legislation. These investigations can also stem from any prominent public issue. One of the most famous investigations occurred after the 9/11 attacks. Shortly after the investigation, President Bush established the Department of Homeland Security to handle terrorist activity. Alternatively, investigations can be very easily politicized due to the partisan climate in Congress. As former Congressman Lee Hamilton once stated, quote, "Partisan politics has no place in the search for answers," end quote. This could be easily solved by having a third-party organization excluding partisan politics from investigations. This is shown in the 1968 Kerner Commission report, where experts outside of the political process successfully concluded that the violent 1967 summer was due to police brutality and racial prejudice, contrary to beliefs of congressional members.
The significance of congressional oversight is undeniable, as it directly influences citizens' quality of life. It is crucial that the bureaucracy and Congress are able to join forces and work for the best implementation of legislation. This collaboration happens so regularly and seamlessly that it often goes unnoticed. There are times, however, when the collaboration isn't so seamless and the process isn't working in a certain area. Because Congress can't constantly oversee every agency at all times, they use a method of fire alarm oversight, where they address problems as they arise rather than preventing them. This can cause flaws in the oversight process. For example, in 2014, a veterans hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, under the minimal supervision of the Department of Veterans Affairs, was investigated after they were caught partaking in illegal behavior and lies pertaining to their hospital waitlist records. This problem may have been avoided with stronger congressional oversight over this agency.
Although there have been mistakes in the oversight process, the institution overall has been effective. Nearly all daily life practices are linked to an executive agency, and the necessary implementation of legislation from Congress based on the knowledge and expertise and application from the bureaucracy. Because the oversight process has such a large effect on every citizen, including issues unknown to the people, it is far more significant than the few cases of investigation that affect solving singular problems at once.
Congressional oversight is an important and powerful check in the hands of the legislative branch. While investigation is a key process in preventing corruption in our government, there's a fault in investigation done by Congress because it's often politicized and would be more effectively done by an outside party not involved in the political process. It is necessary that Congress is able to work with the bureaucracy to ensure their legislation is being implemented with its intentions and to get the knowledge of bureaucrats in their areas of expertise. This concludes our statement and we are ready for your questions.
Well, thank you very much. I will start off with a question. You guys mentioned throughout your presentation that oversight is really to affect the effective collaboration between Congress and agencies, and that Congress and agencies should join forces. But I guess my question is, the very fact that agencies exist is, it seems to me that is what agencies do is more of a legislative function. And so is the administrative state in of itself a violation of the separation of powers? Why or why not?
I don't believe it's a violation of the separation of powers because under Article 2, Section 1, the president has the power to elect appointed officials to the bureaucracy. So therefore it is tied, or the president is tied, the executive branch is tied to that kind of collaboration between the legislative and executive branch. And I think without that collaboration, it would kind of drive the branches apart. And rather than with this kind of relationship we have between the president and his bureaucrats and also Congress, that kind of creates a little bit more collaboration and understanding when with legislation.
I also believe it is important to have the bureaucracy and the bureaucrats implementing policies because they are experts on their specific topics. And I think with that really helps Congress in informing them for their legislation. So I think it is more of a benefit.
And this is under the Chevron Doctrine, as well as executive agency secretaries are appointed under a merit system as of today.
You came down quite strongly in saying that utilization of a third party would be beneficial. Give us some more advantages and disadvantages of that sort of third party involvement and oversight.
I think that an advantage to adding that third party would definitely be the fact that since Congress is initially part of that oversight process between them and the bureaucracy, that would be a little hard for them to also be the ones to hold those investigations under Article 1, Section 1. So I think adding that third party in is not only responsible, but a more mature approach as they can oversee both parties as that third party to be able to have a non-biased view to handle both of those parties well.
What I think isn't necessarily a disadvantage, but under Article 1, Section 1, the Constitution clearly gives the legislative branch the power to do investigations and oversight. And I think we should listen to the Constitution here because under Article 6, it is the supreme law of the land. And I feel like we should listen to it here.
I would have to disagree with my colleague. I think that as we see in the potential investigation on the events of January 6th, that could be easily politicized. And depending on the people in the committee of the investigation and just the views. And I think Congress is inherently political and partisan. And so I think that having a third party or experts on the topic investigating would eliminate that political aspect of a lot of investigations.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask about what happens when the bureaucracy does not want to work with Congress. If Congress is using its oversight and the bureaucracy is resistant, what sort of tools are available to the legislative branch to maybe bring them to regular order?
Well, when doing an investigation, Congress can use a subpoena to try to request and gain information from somebody that they might be investigating, and that's one way they can work and get information that they need.
And this type of situation did happen in former President Trump's last presidency, and that did cause a lot of turmoil and disagreement, especially on the political side. But he was choosing to not follow through with subpoenas, which led to a lot of disagreement and issues in that oversight process.
Anything besides subpoena power and investigations? I mean, is there anything else that Congress can do to compel the bureaucracy to behave a certain way?
Well, Congress also has the power of the purse with their budgeting powers. So everything, including where the bureaucracy gets their money, they can just easily take that away and limit that kind of as a punishment and a warning.
Thank you.
So you guys have talked a little bit about the sort of hyper-political nature of investigations, and I think that's a good thing to bring up. What limits do you think should be placed, if any, on the investigatory powers of Congress?
So I think that a lot of times Congress is able to work bipartisanly and perform investigations. For example, the 9/11 investigation and also the investigation of Nixon and the Watergate scandal. Those were both two examples of where everyone was kind of on the same page and they were able to work across party lines. And so it is difficult to say that Congress can't perform any investigations because in some ways it does work. But I think when things are getting too political and it's a situation where it's easily politicized, it's important to eliminate that political aspect and maybe leave that up to experts on the topic, like the Kerner Commission report.
Please give me a two-sentence definition of the iron triangle, and then tell me your opinion as to whether it is beneficial or not, what advantages it has and what disadvantages it has.
Well, the iron triangle is a collaboration and relationship between Congress, interest groups, and the bureaucracy themselves to help kind of make some well-rounded legislation and to kind of have Congress utilize congressional oversight effectively. And I think it is beneficial because it's not just Congress making legislative things, because that is kind of a big burden to create all legislation and to get it right. And having interest groups and also bureaucracies, secretaries under the Chevron Doctrine, who are the best in their field, it creates better, well-rounded legislation.
That was two sentences, I think. You mentioned using the power of the purse being an effective tool, but can we say a bit more about how effective it is? How often is it that budgets get cut or agencies get eliminated? And if it's not the case that that happens, then is that really an effective tool?
I would say it's not very often that an agency gets cut. However, I think there's potential, and it actually has happened, where an agency gets altered. So one of the
Go ahead.
One of the first original 4 agencies was the Department of War, which was later changed to the Department of Defense as it suited better. So I think altering an agency under that executive order under Article 2, Section 1 could potentially save that situation.
Thank you.
No, guys. So yeah, so we just want to give you a little bit of feedback. One of the things that I appreciated about your opening statement was really one of the first lines you said, which was most Americans don't have a grasp on federal bureaucracy. And I think whatever your belief on politics or the bureaucracy, I think that's true. And I think that was a sort of a nice tone setting feature for where you were going with the oversight power and how it is crucial to the effective administration of government. So I appreciated that. I think when you guys got to investigations, my favorite thing about your presentation there was I think it's really easy to go directly to a hyper political example, and those are fine to talk about, and that's fine. But what you guys did was you brought up one that, in theory, or in many ways, at least by today's standards, was bipartisan, or at least was less partisan. And this whole idea of the investigation in 9/11, and how there was this fact-finding feature, and then that led to this new department, the Department of Homeland Security. So I thought that was a great example. I think the other thing that I appreciated as a lawyer was you mentioned with my question with the violation of separation of powers. You guys took it in a way that I'm thinking about a lot, but I wasn't sure was going to come up, and that was with the Chevron Doctrine, and that is something, good judicial doctrine to throw in there, and it is relevant to this question of, do agencies have the ability to legislate? What I would have liked to have seen more with that question, and this is a hot topic, issue right now with both in the state of Wisconsin and also on the national level, is do these agencies have too much power? Are they kind of encroaching in the lawmaking feature of Congress? And I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more counterpoint with that. So yes, it is a violation of separation of powers, or no, it's not. And you gave good answers as to why you all thought it was not a violation of separation of powers. The experts help inform the legislatures, and that's all good. But I would have liked to have seen, yes, it is. The Constitution says nothing about this giant engorged administrative state, whether or not you agree with it. So, it would have been nice to see more of that. That said, when we got to Tom's question, the first question you asked about third-party commissions, you guys did that. Someone said someone took a position on it, and then another one of your colleagues said, well, I disagree. So I really appreciate that. And so you got there with one of the questions, and I think it helps to illuminate the fully orbed nature of the issue that we're talking about. And it shows you guys have had a critical engagement with it, even if you have one position on it or not. So all around, I think you guys did a great job. Iron Triangle reference was great. So thank you for that.
I thought you did a very good job. Like Zach, you got my attention immediately with the initial statements about the bureaucracy, and that's good. I mean, that was very beneficial in honing in on it. And the quotes that you gave in your initial 4-minute presentation were right on point and helpful as an explanatory matter. I thought your answers were good to the various questions that we asked you, and I appreciate it. It was good to hear your strong proposal for the third-party involvement, and your reasons why. I thought that was well reasoned, and you did a good job of explaining that. I just want to give you one little procedural situation, which is probably out the window because we're doing this virtually and by Zoom and so forth. But I would suggest to you that you have some order of how you respond when a question is given to you. When you're saying in the same room and sitting at a table, you can look down the table and say, and someone will lean forward and start speaking. But here on Zoom, there was a pause after we asked you the question, as you decided or someone decided to unmute and start speaking. So as an example, we have an order. Zach goes, and then I follow Zach, and then Bob follows me. And so we know, and we don't speak over anybody, and we know who's going to speak next and so forth. And that is just a minor procedural thing, but there were some pauses after we asked the question, and that can lead you to believe that, they don't know the answer to it. But then you disavowed that immediately by coming back with your good answer. So other than that very slight procedural suggestion I make to you, I thought overall you did a very good job. Congratulations to you. And please continue to use your knowledge and leadership because you are certainly good citizens, and we need good citizens like you in the future. Best of luck to you. Thank you.
I would agree. I thought this presentation was very well done, very well crafted, very thorough in its response to the questions that were posed, and it's a big, tough question to get your arms around. You used some great examples, the VA clinic in Phoenix. You had a quote from Lee Hamilton, who's a personal friend, so that's extra points right there. He just turned 90 last week. You went to the CRS for your definition of oversight, and you can't do much better than that. So, I mean, you went straight to the source. You mentioned fire alarm and police patrol, which is a very sophisticated sort of ever-present understanding of the ways, different ways that oversight can work. You took a strong position on partisanship, and I agree with you that you can make a very good, compelling case for a third party. On the other hand, there's a troubling aspect to that. If lawmakers are incapable of investigating because they're too partisan, they're probably incapable of legislating. Once we decide that partisanship makes people unfit for some reason, then it leads us down a very bad path. But I appreciate the claim that you made, and the best example of this is one that you mentioned. We can't even begin to undertake a January 6th investigation because they can't agree on the basis of the composition of the group, the select committee, and what the focus will be. They can't seem to get off the dime and examine something that just happened months ago and that everybody wants to get to the bottom of, I think, on all sides, because it was a very troubling development. So you're not far off to say that partisanship is crippling our ability to investigate and find out the facts. So from start to finish, you took us from the beginning and brought us up to the current day, and I think you've given us a lot to think about, and I was impressed by what you brought together for us.